now as Gangster Clark heard Cheryl Crusted Blueberry Muffin ass Reeve being salty in that press conference, throwing shade at the Fever and said, nope, get her punk ass up out of here. She ain't about to coach my team for the All-Star game, and that's why I call her Gangster Clark, because whatever Gangster Clark wants, Gangster Clark gets.
Caitlin Clark just pulled off one of the most savage moves in WNBA history, and she did it live on national television. While fans expected a fun, lighthearted all-star draft, Clark shocked everyone by doing something that's never been seen before. She didn't trade a player, she traded her coach. In front of the cameras, the media, and a stunned audience, Clark calmly looked at the draft table and sent legendary coach Cheryl Reeve off her team like she was cutting dead weight. No warning, no hesitation, no apologies. And this wasn't just some random swap. Cheryl Reeve isn't just any coach. She's a 4-time WNBA champion, a loud voice in the league, and more importantly, one of the people who's been publicly critical of Caitlin since the moment she entered the WNBA. Reeve questioned the hype, questioned the media attention, and allegedly even played a role in keeping Caitlin off the Olympic team.
There was also quite a bit of bitterness coming from Team USA's coach Cheryl Reeves when she was asked pretty much any questions about Caitlin Clark, and she was asked if there was any second guessing from her on Caitlin Clark not making the team, and she very just spitefully says no. Doesn't elaborate on it, just says no.
For me?
Yeah.
No.
But in that moment, Caitlin made it clear, wait, if you weren't with her, you weren't going to stand beside her. Fans exploded online, calling it the coldest power move of the year. But the story didn't end there, because what Caitlin did after that trade made her message even louder. No drama, no haters, and no one standing in the way of her legacy. What really happened behind that mic was bigger than a coach swap. It was a turning point, and what came next, you're not going to believe it. The moment the WNBA All-Star Draft began, nobody expected drama. This was supposed to be fun. Two rising stars, Caitlin Clark and Napheesa Collier, picking their squads like captains at recess. Laughs, jokes, and good vibes. But Caitlin had something else in mind. When the coaches were automatically assigned based on team records, Clark was paired with Cheryl Reeve, a coach known for her accolades and her history of tension with Caitlin. But before anyone could process what was happening, Clark leaned into the mic, calm as ever, and dropped a bomb.
The WNBA All-Star Draft was fun between Caitlin Clark and Napheesa Collier, the team captains, picking the players, picking the rosters. But the most interesting aspect was the coach swap, because Clark traded Cheryl Reeve, who was the coach of her team, or was to be the coach of her team, to Collier for Sandy Brondello, the coach of the New York Liberty.
She was trading her coach. That's right. Caitlin traded Cheryl Reeve to Collier's team right in front of everyone. In exchange, she brought in Sandy Brondello from the New York Liberty, one of the most respected names in the game. The draft room went quiet for a second. Stunned silence, and then erupted in laughter, gasps, and disbelief. Even Reeve looked blindsided. The ESPN broadcast team scrambled to process it. Fans watching at home couldn't believe what they were seeing. Was that even allowed? No one knew, and Caitlin didn't care. With a smirk on her face, she doubled down and said it straight. Sorry, WNBA, if that's not in the rules. We just made it a rule. It wasn't just unexpected, it was unheard of. A rookie trading away one of the league's most decorated coaches live on national TV.
Caitlin Clark just made the funniest all-star selections ever. She just picked her friends. She made sure she picked no ops, as people like to call them. She made sure there were no ops on her team. If she's played with a player before, like Sonia Citron, she picked her. Gabby Williams, she picked nobody that's tweeted a negative thing about her. She's picked nobody that has said a negative thing about her in the media. She picked none of her rivals.
But for Caitlin, this wasn't about shock value. It was about something much deeper, something personal. And Cheryl Reeve had to sit there, cameras rolling, as the message became crystal clear. You don't get to coach me if you don't believe in me. To understand why Caitlin Clark's move hit so hard, you have to know who Cheryl Reeve really is and what she represents. Cheryl Reeve isn't some average sideline figure. She's one of the most accomplished coaches in WNBA history. 4 championships, executive of the year, a voice that carries carries weight across the league. She's coached legends, she's built dynasties, and for years she's been known for her fiery personality and blunt opinions. But that same boldness has also made her one of Caitlin Clark's loudest critics.
Of course, Reeve is Collier's head coach for the Minnesota Lynx, so that makes sense. But the drama is going to come from Reeve having previously been critical on social media about the amount of attention Clark received relative to the rest of the league, not to mention being the coach of Team USA that Caitlin Clark was so famously snubbed from.
From the moment Clark stepped onto a WNBA court, Reeve made it clear she wasn't buying the hype. While most of the league was adjusting to the explosion of attention Caitlin brought, Reeve went in the other direction. She questioned the focus on one player. She made passive-aggressive comments about teams below us getting too many all-star picks, and she reportedly downplayed Caitlin's impact in interviews more than once. Even more telling, Reeve's name was floated by insiders as one of the behind-the-scenes voices during the Olympic roster discussions, the very decision that left Caitlin off Team USA, despite her massive popularity and fan support.
And it's funny to me how even she coached this game, because if you didn't think Caitlin Clark was the caliber of player that she is, then why would you feel the need to face guard her, to trap her?
Reeve denied having any official role, but the tension was already out in the open. She even deleted tweets that appeared to mock the Caitlin Clark media frenzy. Fans noticed, so did players. So when Caitlin was automatically assigned Cheryl Reeve as her all-star coach, it wasn't just awkward. It was personal. This wasn't a coach and player pairing built on trust or mutual respect. It was a collision waiting to happen. And when Caitlin made the decision to trade her mid-draft, it wasn't about gamesmanship. It was about removing someone who had never believed in her and doing it publicly.
Caitlin Clark was supposed to be coached by Minnesota Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve. Nafisa Collier was supposed to be coached by New York Liberty head coach Sandy Brondello. They swapped coaches. Cheryl Reeve, dodged the bullet. Thank God I don't need to coach Caitlin Clark, man. Man, I can't deal with that. I would have had to swallow so much pride, I can't do that. Fee, she probably called him the Fee, talk to Caitlin, please. I can't coach her, I can't do it. This book's about to come out. You know what they're going to be saying if I'm coaching Caitlin Clark and the book's out? Oh, God. Fee, please.
Caitlin Clark didn't just trade a coach. She made a statement, loud, clear, and impossible to ignore. This wasn't about strategy. This wasn't about fit. This was about respect, or the lack of it. For months, Cheryl Reeve had positioned herself as one of the most critical voices in the league when it came to Clark. She dismissed the attention Clark brought as overhyped. She minimized her influence in interviews, and she continuously pointed out how other teams, especially her own, they were being overlooked because of the media storm surrounding Caitlin. But it didn't stop there. She went on national platforms and questioned why certain teams, clearly referencing the Indiana Fever, had more all-star players than deserving teams like hers. When Clark was left off the Olympic roster, fans instantly questioned who had pulled strings behind the scene.
I don't know what's gotten into Caitlin Clark. You are leaning into this bad guy role. I love it. I don't know what's gotten into you, Caitlin Clark, but you've been on some I don't give a F lately. I love it. Oh my God, I cannot believe she just eviscerated and embarrassed Cheryl Reeve on national TV like that. They said, hey, would you like to make a player trade? It's better yet, I'll do you one better. Get this fucking coach up out of here. Hey, Caitlin Clark ain't playing, bro.
Reeve's name surfaced almost immediately. Even if she wasn't solely responsible, the connection was hard to ignore. Reeve had the influence, she had the voice, and she had a history of throwing cold water on Caitlin's rising star. Clark heard all of it, so when her moment came, when the WNBA randomly paired her with a coach who'd barely disguised her dislike, Clark responded the only way she knew how, calm, composed, and with maximum impact. She didn't call Reeve out by name, she didn't rant, she just made one move, trading her away, and let the message speak for itself. You don't get to be in my corner now, not after everything you said. And in that moment, Caitlin Clark proved she wasn't just here to play, she was here to draw her own lines in the sand and protect the space she's building. Once Caitlin Clark made it clear that Cheryl Reeve wasn't welcome on her bench, she turned her focus to something even more calculated, building the kind of team that wouldn't just win, but would stand behind her without hesitation. From her very first pick, fans noticed the pattern. Clark wasn't just selecting based on stats. She was selecting based on loyalty, chemistry, and respect. Her first choice, Aaliyah Boston, her Indiana Fever teammate, and someone who has supported her every step of the way. That pick alone set the tone. Caitlin wasn't taking chances. She was surrounding herself with people who had her back. Next came names like Sabrina Ionescu and Satu Sabali, two players who had shown nothing but public support during Caitlin's rise, even when others stayed silent or joined the wave of criticism. Then she scooped up Aja Wilson, one of the league's biggest stars whose talent speaks for itself. And even Clark joked, "You'd have to be crazy to pass on Aja." But the most important part? No operations, no shade, no snakes. Fans on social media quickly gave her team a nickname, Team Vibes, or No Ops Allowed, because Clark didn't just avoid her critics, she made sure to exclude them. She passed on players who had publicly questioned her place in the league, who had jumped on the "she hasn't earned it yet" narrative, and who contributed to the toxic noise that's followed her all season. Every pick told a story, every roster spot was intentional, and with each name she added, she was rewriting the energy of the All-Star game. This wasn't just about building the best team on paper, it was about building a team she could trust, a team where she didn't have to watch her back or worry if someone was secretly rooting against her success. No backhanded comments, no subtle digs, no fake smiles, just teammates who believed in her and were ready to go to war with her. On the surface, Caitlin Clark's All-Star draft picks looked like a simple chemistry move, but the deeper you looked, the more obvious it became. This was way more than just basketball. Yes, she chose high IQ players. Yes, her team had size, speed, and shooting. But this wasn't just about building a winning roster. It was about building a safe space, a statement team, one that reflected exactly who she is and what she stands for. With Clark at point, Boston in the paint, Sabali on the wing, and Wilson doing it all, this lineup was fast, physical, and flat out dangerous. But every one of those names also shared something else. Not a single one had ever taken a public shot at her. Not a single one had fed into the negative headlines or dismissed her place in the league. Even her bench spoke volumes. Kelsey Mitchell, another Fever teammate who's been in her corner since day one. Gabby Williams, a respected veteran with no history of drama. Sonia Citron, someone Clark had already shared the court with and trusted. The message was clear. Talent was the requirement, but character was the filter. And in a league where politics and cliques have started to show more than ever, Caitlin Clark was choosing a new way forward, one that prioritized unity over drama, one where you didn't have to wonder who was talking behind your back. It wasn't about being petty, it was about protecting her peace. So was her draft a strategic masterclass? Absolutely, but it was also a warning to the league. Why, if you've disrespected me, don't expect to share the floor with me. And that mindset changed everything. When Caitlin Clark traded Cheryl Reeve live during the All-Star draft, it was more than just a surprise. It was a moment that shook the entire WNBA, and no one felt that impact more than Reeve herself. The cameras caught it all. As Caitlin calmly announced the coach trade, Cheryl Reeve tried to keep her composure. She smiled, but it wasn't real. Her eyes gave it away. She looked stunned, blindsided. In that moment, one of the most powerful figures in women's basketball got publicly benched by a rookie. And not just benched, traded for someone Clark actually wanted. The ESPN broadcasters fumbled to keep up. One of them even said, "I don't think I've ever seen a coach get traded at the All-Star game." Social media exploded within seconds. Clips of the moment spread like wildfire. Fans called it legendary, gangster, and the ultimate clapback. Some even said it was the most iconic WNBA moment they'd seen in years. But while fans were celebrating, Cheryl Reeve was clearly rattled. She now had to coach the opposing team, a team that included players who had questioned Caitlin's talent and supported the very narratives Reeve had been pushing. It was almost poetic. The coach who tried to minimize Clark's impact was now on the outside of her spotlight, coaching against her. You could feel the tension in every frame. Even players on the broadcast joked about it. One said Reeve looked like she was crying inside. Another hinted that the coaches might be the real X factors this year, clearly referencing the awkward energy between Reeve and the players she'd ended up with. Through it all, Caitlin Clark never gloated. She didn't throw shade or rub it in. She just smiled, kept it moving, and focused on her team. That quiet confidence made the moment hit even harder. This wasn't a joke to Clark, it was closure. For months, she'd watched Reeve undermine her in interviews, question her popularity, and possibly influence her Olympic snub. And now, in front of millions, Caitlin made it clear, you don't get to be in my circle if you never had my back. Caitlin Clark's decision to trade Cheryl Reeve wasn't just bold, it was symbolic. In that one moment, she flipped the power dynamic that had followed her all season. For the first time since entering the WNBA, she wasn't reacting to criticism. She was silencing it. Most rookies come into the league quietly, trying to fit in and avoid shaking things up. Caitlin did the opposite. She stood up on one of the most visible stages of the year and made it clear she wasn't going to play by the unspoken rules. She didn't ask for approval, she didn't check with league officials, she made a move that wasn't even technically allowed, and then calmly said, "We just made it a rule." That line alone became a viral moment. Fans turned it into memes, tweets, and TikToks within minutes. But beneath the humor, there was something real, a sense that Caitlin had finally drawn the line between who she was expected to be and who she actually is. This wasn't about disrespecting Reeve, it was about reclaiming control. All season long, Clark had been the subject of backhanded comments, passive-aggressive interviews, and public criticism, and instead of clapping back on Twitter or firing off interviews of her own, she waited, she watched, she absorbed it all. Then, when the entire league was watching, she responded with a single move that said everything she needed to say. In that moment, she wasn't just a rookie anymore, she was a leader, not just on the court, but inside the culture of the league. She showed that being new doesn't mean being silent, that being young doesn't mean being soft, and most importantly, she reminded everyone that respect isn't given, it's demanded. The All-Star Game was never meant to be this intense. Normally it's a celebration, a night of fun, jokes, and high-level basketball. But Caitlin Clark changed the tone the moment she traded Cheryl Reeve. Suddenly, this wasn't just Team Caitlin versus Team Collier. It became a showdown between loyalty and politics. Clark's roster was full of teammates she trusted, players who supported her publicly and privately. On the other side, Cheryl Reeve coaching a team that included several of Clark's most vocal critics. Fans immediately picked up on the divide. Social media dubbed it Fever versus everybody, and Team Vibes versus Team Shade. Even broadcasters hinted at the tension, joking that the coaches might be the real X factor this year. What was supposed to be a feel-good event turned into a statement game, because now, every pass, every shot, every play had something extra behind it, and for Caitlin, it wasn't just about winning a game, it was about sending a message. In one bold move, Caitlin Clark changed the entire tone of the WNBA All-Star Game. She didn't just trade a coach, she took control of her narrative. No drama, no back and forth, just action. By removing Cheryl Reeve and building a team rooted in loyalty, Caitlin made one thing clear. If you don't respect her, you don't get to stand beside her. This wasn't about ego, it was about protecting her legacy. And now, the All-Star Game is personal. If you're Team Caitlin, drop a comment and let the league know where you stand. And if you want more bold moments, unfiltered drama, and real stories like this, then make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next.